I think it's that for how well the guys at the top of the order have performed for most of the year, it's that the offense maybe isn't a little bit better.
So let's talk Dodgers Yankees right now with Jack Harris. You can follow him at Jack Harris, making his FT Live debut, and follow all of his work in the LA Times. Love what you do. Been following you for a long time, Jack. Great to have you on, man. Appreciate it. And are you excited to see what these two teams bring to the table, despite the fact that one team is much, much more hot heading into the weekend?
Yeah, I was going to say, actually, the Pirates looked pretty good this week. But
that was my trolling.
Yeah.
The Pirates are playing the Twins, not the Blue Jays.
Okay, good.
No, but I think this series, this is one of the beautiful parts of the new schedule is you get these kind of matchups on a yearly basis. You get these series that, make you think about a potential World Series preview or something like that. You get Ohtani playing in Yankee Stadium. You get this Dodger team. And probably what will be one of the more hostile environments they face this year. So I think from all those standpoints, that's what's intriguing about this is just seeing as much the attention that's going into this series. I know a lot of Dodger fans are trying to get up here and travel. The games themselves, it's still just a series in early June. On the Dodgers side, they downplayed this being any sort of measuring stick series for them or something like that. Dave Roberts was upset that they had to use as many relievers as they did last night. Because he wanted to save some of them for New York. So, it's not maybe a perfect representation, but to get at least a 3-game sample here and see how these teams look against each other is going to be interesting. I think that the high point of the Dodger season this year is when Atlanta came to LA and they won that series. And I think you have a similar opportunity here to at least make some sort of smaller midseason statement about where they're at, especially with how up and down they've been the last couple of weeks.
So is it not a big series because the Dodgers aren't playing to their best and it's well, you didn't get us at our best? Or is it not a big series because the Dodgers just have to give the vanilla answer of, well, it's just another game in June, because the games in June count the same as the games in September?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably the latter, and that's how the Dodgers have for a long time looked at regular seasons, right? I mean, even this year, when they faced the D-backs for the first time, they really downplayed any sort of revenge narrative. They've done the same thing with the Padres in the past, with the Braves in the past. And I think it's the same calculus here. They have a strong organizational philosophy of we just got to treat everything in the regular season as the next game, as the next series. And I think part of that also is it's a club that knows, it's really only getting judged in October with how deep they go in the postseason, with how well they do. Trying to get back to the World Series and winning it. So I think this does add a little bit of juice or energy into the schedule when you get to play in this kind of environment. Mookie Betts, that was the point he made last night when he was talking about these games coming up is, it's going to be a really fun atmosphere to play in. But I think beyond that, you're getting these teams at a point where obviously, you have the Soto storyline now. The Dodgers were kind of scuffling and are coming off a series loss in Pittsburgh. So for them, they just want to try to play good baseball and win a couple games up here. They're not indulging in the rest of the hype around, the matchups and the markets and all that.
Jack, Jason Kipnis here. First off, fellow ASU alum. Am I reading that correct?
Right, yeah.
My man.
Cut the cord.
I want to focus a little bit on Mookie right now because some of his quotes these last few days, and I know that Dave Roberts talked a little bit about his defense, or he talked about the whole team's defense a little bit. What are you seeing out of Mookie's defense, and do you think it's impacting his swing? I know he said it didn't. He said he's felt the best he has in a long time. From your point of view, what are you seeing? Do you think it's having an impact? And if it is, and if you think the Dodgers were to ever make a switch, where would that, if they move Mookie back to right or something, who comes into play short? How would you see the moving pieces also going?
Yeah, I mean, I think just starting with his defense, it's been probably about as good as you could have expected for a guy who just hadn't played this position since high school. That said, there have been games like last night where he commits an error. He had a couple other balls that he was able to get to but couldn't turn into outs. He was not the only guy who had a bad defensive game for the Dodgers last night. There were 6 or 7 misplays that led to the high reliever usage and things like that. But, for him personally, he takes that really personally. He's putting in a lot of time before games to try to shore up the defense, to try to, prove that he can play shortstop at the big league level on an everyday basis. That's where the workload part, the body fatigue part, how he's feeling physically all comes in because of how much work he's doing pregame, how much energy he's expending on the defensive side. There are always going to naturally be questions about could he balance that, with the bat, with his offensive production. He was really good the first month of the season. He cooled off a little bit early in May, and then up before last night was in a 2 or 3 week stretch where he really wasn't performing well at the plate. Now, Dave Roberts was adamant about this. Mookie Betts was adamant about this, that they don't think the cause of that is because he's playing shortstop, because he's taking extra grounders pregame, because he's having to spend more mental energy on learning this position. But that said, it is a big workload, and it is something that very few players, even guys of Mookie Betts' athletic caliber, can handle doing over a 6-month season. So I think that's the stage that the Dodgers are in right now. They're happy with his defense. I think their expectation is that it'll just keep getting better the more time he puts in at the position. I think they're comfortable with the idea of having Mookie be their shortstop for the rest of the year if that's the way it plays out. At the same time, I don't think that they're going to ignore, looking at the shortstop spot when it comes to the trade deadline, when it comes to, okay, what is going to be the best roster construction for our team? And if Mookie isn't the shortstop at some point this season, I think it's almost certainly he's going to be going back to second base. He's made it pretty clear that, when he's playing the infield, it keeps him a little bit more engaged. It keeps him feeling fresher, with the work, even with the work he's putting in at shortstop. Like he said last night, he feels like this is the best he's been physically since he was 21 or 22 years old. So he's really come around as a guy who wants to play the infield first. And I think the Dodgers also want that. I think they think that's the best setup for him. And it makes these next couple months really interesting to see how that situation plays out, how the Dodgers view that spot. And when they start looking at moves they might make at the deadline, do they look at Mookie Betts as locked in as their everyday shortstop for the rest of the season? Or do they factor in, okay, we can make a move there and maybe move him back to second if we need to make some pieces fit?
FT is headed to the MLB All-Star Game this year, and there's only one way you should be finding tickets for any ball game. SeatGeek is the official ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, so they have you covered for all of your baseball ticket needs.
I'm super pumped to hit the Futures game this year. That new skills competition looks electric.
I agree, Kratz. It's like the Olympics for baseball. Cannot wait to see that. With over 28 million downloads, SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app. Baseball season's in full swing, and you don't want to miss out. SeatGeek has your tickets to every game and, of course, concerts, festivals, and more.
Every ticket's backed by their buyer guarantee, and SeatGeek is the only site that lets you return your tickets ahead of the event with swaps.
And Kratz, FT came through for the people. Use our code FOUL for $20 off tickets at SeatGeek. That's $20 off your first purchase with promo code FOUL. Make sure you click the link in the description to download the app, please.
Well, I think it takes a otherworldly athlete to go from the outfield to the infield. I think there's only a very special breed that can do that. As I pat myself on the back, who didn't do it well at all. But I think I want to make a comment on what Mookie's doing right now, because it is very hard to do. I had about a year and a half, but I did it in the minor leagues where I made the adjustment. I wasn't making it on the fly at the major league level, which is what Mookie Betts is doing, which is incredibly impressive. He is using a lot of energy, where when you're having to take all these extra ground balls before games every day, where other days you might have just hit in the cage before the game and gone out and played that day and saved some of that energy, especially from the long season and in this heat in the summer months, he's having to stay on top of his defense because he's like a perfectionist. He wants it. It means a lot to him, and he wants to be a great shortstop, and he knows it's a big switch. So I don't want to undersell how much energy he is using, and he may not admit to it, but that's what's happening. And also, it really does go to show where it's like Mookie's switching positions and switching to the infield, having to take ground balls, and now you're talking about how much energy he's using. Again, Shohei, who does it with hitting and pitching, just that's how much time some of these guys have to put in to be as special as they are, because those are two of the more special guys in this entire league.
Yeah, and even after a game like last night, Mookie's saying, "Oh, I didn't play this ball correctly, so tomorrow it's back to the drawing board. It's back out there early, working on this kind of play." And that's how he's approached it, and it's what's helped him progress as fast as he has defensively. But yeah, at the same time, it raises these questions about, okay, how much of a toll is he putting on himself physically, and is it something that can be sustained for the full season?
It's one thing to make your errors in a minor league game and with no one really watching, or in a small city, or take extra ground balls where they might even give you a day off. But just, again, I got to give him credit to do it at a major league level. on the fly like he's doing is ridiculous.
Hey, Jack, question that's just circulating in our busy chat right now because everyone's excited about this series. Let's start looking forward. Next month is the trade deadline, so you're very much allowed to talk about this. In June, we've already gotten very deep into trade talk, so let's focus on the Dodgers. So, two things. One, what needs to be fixed, and two, how does that get fixed? Whether it's names or just ideas, I know
Yeah.
it's early. What are you thinking about?
I think the obvious one right now is that the production at the bottom of the lineup just has not been consistent enough. Basically, outside of Miguel Rojas and Gavin Lux and Jason Hayward to some extent the last couple of weeks, that 6, 7, 8, 9 part of the order has been a liability for the Dodgers. Kike Hernandez has been up and down. Chris Taylor has been in a really, really tough spot since the start of the year. You throw in Max Muncy's injury, which has kept him out the last couple weeks here, and suddenly this Dodger offense looks too top heavy, and at times that's come back to bite them, especially when you have Mookie who's a little off, or Shohei who went through a little bit of a slump the last couple weeks. That part's become, I think, a little bit exposed here the first 2 months. So how you fix that? That's where you look at this trade market and you start asking yourself, okay, the Dodgers, they can add in the outfield, they can add in the infield and move pieces around. It's not as if they're boxed into just one specific spot they need to look at, but is that impact bat going to be there? Is a Luis Robert, can you get a guy of that kind of caliber? Would that be enough? Would that be worth the prospect capital? Could you make the money part work? I think right now the Dodgers are looking at it kind of broadly where it's like, okay, you're probably going to be looking for an offensive upgrade somewhere over the next couple months, but it's who are you plugging in? How much trust do you have in your group internally? So I think there's still more of that, trying to take full stock of what they have, where they're going to need to either add or replace guys in the lineup, and then are there the guys on the market that match that spot? Because I think when you look at the rest of the team, the bullpen's pretty banged up right now, but guys are going to come back. They have a lot of they're going to have a lot of depth there to mix and match pieces, especially when you start thinking about an October environment. To this point, Tyler Glasnow has been pretty good. Yoshinobu Yamamoto has looked a lot better over the last couple weeks, and the Dodgers have a lot of starting pitchers coming back. So the offense is the one spot right now that's a pretty glaring need, but I think there's a lot of different ways you can do that. Whether it's can you wait out a shortstop? If Toronto's maybe going to move a Bo Bichette, are they in on that market? Those are all just like very kind of general possibilities, but it speaks to how the Dodgers are going to have a lot of different options. They just have to take some time right now to figure out, which path is going to make the most sense and what changes to the lineup, how drastic of changes to the bottom of the lineup are they going to need.
When you're in a clubhouse and you're seeing Shohei interact, seeing him or talking to him, is there a sense when it's a big series like this, like the Braves series, like the Yankees series, you hear the words that they say? Do you feel like Shohei has a different step, like a different vibe about him, because he comes up huge in these series? And I'm not saying other guys don't, but he only has to focus on hitting. But do you feel a sense of a little more energy from him because he understands? Players from Japan understand the Yankee. Masahiro Tanaka told me, he said, the best team in America is the Yankees. That's why I want to only play for the Yankees. Do you sense that he is juiced for this series?
To your first point, Ohtani does seem to at least perform really well in big moments, right? Like I think even this year, he goes to Toronto, he's getting booed, he hits a home run in his first at bat. You think back to last year's World Baseball Classic, even like the matchup with Paul Skeens earlier this week, where he strikes out on 3 pitches in his first trip up there, and then comes back and hits a home run to straightaway center. Now, where that comes from, this is where some of the closed off nature of Ohtani makes it tough to pinpoint what it is exactly that motivates him. But I think, there's something to the fact of a guy who, really cares about baseball beyond just his own career, right? Like he makes a lot of references to players he watched growing up and some of the more historical aspects of the game. He went to Wrigley Field for the first time this year and talked about, how historic of an environment that was and how much he enjoyed playing there. And I think it's a similar thing here. I remember in There's been times in the past, like I think back to 2021 when he came to New York and Yankee fans were booing him, and he had a big series. So I think there's something to that. Yeah, understanding when there's a big moment and an opportunity to perform in a big moment. But I don't know if he's coming and saying, "Oh, I have to have a great series here." I think it's more when he gets in those environments. He's one of these players who's able to keep his composure and channel his emotions and perform when it is a spotlight moment. There's a lot of people watching.
Jack, do we have any update on Clayton Kershaw from your end?
Yeah, he's
timetable
throwing,
maybe.
Yeah, he started throwing live ABs. He's throwing a 2-inning sim game this weekend with the team's low A affiliate and Rancho Cucamonga. So far, I mean, this is about the progression that Kershaw and the Dodgers were hoping for back at the start of the year. Kershaw himself said in spring training he was targeting sometime in late July and August to try to get back on the mound. And when you look at the timeline now, he's in this stretch of probably for the next couple of weeks doing some live situations, some sim games, things like that. If that continues to progress well, he would go out on a rehab assignment. So you're talking about, if he keeps checking these boxes in a month or two, it being realistic that he could be back on the mound. The key thing is always how the shoulder is feeling. Is it bouncing back between outings well? Is he holding his stuff in outings as he continues to build up the workload? So those are things that only get answered in time. But for a guy who underwent a major shoulder surgery at the end of last season, right now you can see the pathway where if things keep going well, he could be back on the mound and contributing to this team by the last couple months of the year.
Eric Kratz here from FT. I'm a former athlete that really pays attention to his routine. And AG1 every morning before my workouts is something that gets my day going.
Hey, Braun here. AG1 is a foundational nutrition supplement that delivers daily nutrients and gut health support, and it's backed by multiple research studies so you can trust what you're putting in your body.
Unlike other products which only test their ingredients in isolation, AG1 tests their formula as a whole.
Ready for this stat? 97% of people in a research study felt more energy after 30 days of drinking AG1. If I had to recommend one product to support whole body health, it's AG1, and that's why FT is excited to have them as a new partner. Starting your journey with AG1 is a win. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3, K2, and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase at drinkag1.com/foul. That's drinkag1.com/FOUL. Go check it out, FT fam.
All right. I guess nobody asked it, so I have to ask it, and it kills me to ask it. Chris Taylor, what is the next step for the Dodgers? Because the Dodgers want to win. As a player, I want to see Chris Taylor get back to what Chris Taylor was. But what is the next step for the Dodgers with Chris Taylor?
Yeah, it's a tricky situation. I think at the moment there's not the roster crunch or the roster pressure for anything to be imminent. As long as Max Muncy's out hurt, they're not going to need to make a roster move. And even when he comes back, they could just option Miguel Vargas back down to the minors, or maybe something else happens between now and then. So as long as there's not a roster crunch, they're going to keep giving him time to try to work through the swing issues that he's been working through. He tried this offseason to go back to some of the mental cues and mechanical feels that he used when he first made the swing change, when he got to the Dodgers, the one that turned him into an all-star caliber player. It just didn't work. Over time, your body changes. The moves that once might have worked, the way he described it, like they just don't anymore. And it's taken him time to recalibrate where his swing and his body is at right now to try to get his mechanics back in sync and find something at the plate that's going to work for him. But I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. He's a guy who was batting under 100 for a lot of the year and is batting in the low hundreds right now. He's not playing very much. There's been a lot of behind the scenes work trying to find something. My guess is that at least until the deadline, unless the Dodgers do have a big roster crunch, I think he'll probably stay on the roster and the team will keep giving him that leash, which, he's earned. Like, this has been one of the more important players for this franchise the last 6 or 7 years. When you look back on this run of success, he's had a lot of big moments, and there is internal belief, or at least hope, that there's still a productive player and a productive swing in there that he can get back to. So they want to give him time to figure it out. I look at the trade deadline as probably the time where there could be a lot of bigger picture roster moves for the Dodgers, or just kind of a reorganization of where the roster stacks up. So, when I look at his season right now, it's okay. Over the next couple months, can you start to put together some more consistent production? Can you start to put together or show that your swing's in a better place? If he can, I think he could stick around and be a bench option for them the rest of the year. If he can't, I think it just makes this situation even more difficult for the Dodgers as they try to look at, or decide, is this a guy we can keep on our team for a World Series and pennant push?
All right, last one here. We got a minute. What is the biggest surprise from the Dodgers season, good or bad?
I think it's that for how well the guys at the top of the order have performed for most of the year, it's that the offense maybe isn't a little bit better. Now, that's not to say it's been a bad offense. They're still top 5 or 6 in the majors in batting average and OPS and scoring. But for a lot of this year, you had Shohei and Mookie playing like MVP candidates. You had Freddie Freeman and Will Smith playing like at least all-star caliber players. You've had Oscar Hernandez, who's got 13 home runs and is among the team leaders in RBIs. Like, a lot of things offensively have gone right for them. And I think you just would have expected that if you were getting that kind of production out of those caliber of players, you would be leading the majors across the board in offense, right? And this is where, when you evaluate the Dodgers, like, things always get nitpicky, because this team, like, the bar is being the best. It is winning a championship. And when you evaluate the regular season, you're not judging them against other teams so much as like their potential. And I think that's been maybe the biggest surprise so far, is that the offense hasn't quite gotten there, even with some of the really good individual performances that they've had.
I'm with you. Great call. Jack, great to have you on the show, man. Really appreciate the time. Everyone check out his work. I'll give it a plug one more time as we say goodbye, and we'll post some of these clips to our Twitter account too, for people to check out your work. But great having you on. Enjoy the series. It's going to be fun.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Hey, everybody. Be sure to like and subscribe for more content.
We're back here every weekday, all year long, so do not miss an episode.
The videos are coming in all day. Here's another video you might enjoy.
Baseball the way it should be covered.